So hi and welcome to another video, and today we're going to be tearing down the Razer Viper Ultimate. I know a lot of you have been asking for this, so here it is today. So as usual, we're going to be using all the same tools that we normally use. There are a few others in here later on that I needed to use. The stock weight is 76 grams from the Viper. This is with the USB in it, and without the USB dongle it's 75 grams. We're going to break down each individual component here as we go through it, weighing every single bit. You can see here I'm using the lighter fluid method to take off the skates. There are some other methods. I'll put a link in the description to the other ones that I've used. You can decide which one's the best. I find that the lighter fluid one is the better one. So the skates here on the rear are coming in at 0.7 millimeters. They aren't rounded, which is a bit of a shame. We're doing some more glide tests. I've got some hyperglides to use on this, as well as some tigers, and we'll be testing those out to see which ones are really good as I do my normal glide tests. If you're not sure what this channel's about, this channel's going to give you the data and statistics to get a competitive edge over your gaming rivals. So make sure you're subscribed and like this video to see more of this content, and so you're always ahead of your rivals. I'm going to be doing a weight reduction on this, which people have been asking me for, which is why we've done this teardown. I'll be streaming that live on Twitch under Bearded Bob, so make sure you're ready for that. We'll see how much weight we can get out of this. Should be interesting to see. Once we tear this down, we'll get a better idea, see what opportunities we have to do that as well. Now you can see here under each skate there's a screw. It's a bit unfortunate. It's not like the Viper Mini where it's under the label. So in other words, to split it in half, you're going to have to take the feet off. If you haven't already as well, go check out my beardedbob.com website. I've got all the statistics on there and charts. It's been updated this week. So I've got some time this week and I'll be doing that. So keep your eye out for some changes to that site. I'm going to bring it up to date because it's been lacking behind a little bit. So nothing out of the ordinary here from the skates. They all seem pretty normal. A few deviations perhaps on the calipers configuration here in terms of sizes, around 0.7 millimeters. Got a USB cover, which I don't particularly like because I'm probably going to lose it, to allow you to hold the dongle in place. I think a lot of people are going to lose that cap though. And like we said here, you can see the screws in each corner. So I'll go to use my Phillips here, it doesn't work. Didn't realise it's a different screw here on the base, which is a bit annoying. So I bust out this new little toolkit that I've got. And in here I pull out a T7 torque. This one seems to work, for me anyway. So once you've done that, you need to split it in half. And like the other Vipers, there's little clips down the side you need to prise open. I'm using my plastic splunger here. All the tools that I use, there's a link in the description for those, so you can check them out if you want to get some yourself. Just be careful when you're pulling this apart not to snap the clips. They're not too delicate, but take your time and just prise it apart and eventually they'll open up. Then there's two JST connections, one for the battery, one for the top switches. I just wiggle those out. They're not too fragile like some of the ribbon cables, say for instance in the Logitech cheaper wireless. And that's it, split in half. Now we get to take the rest of it apart. I'm going to be measuring the PCB and the scroll wheel. I've got a ring measurer for the scroll wheel rubber, so we can change those if you fancy it. Here's what the internal top of the shell looks like. You can see the battery and the side switches on both left and right, as well as the diffuser. The PCB looks pretty standard here. It's got 2 screws in it. Using the Razer grey optomechanical switches. Once the 2 screws are out, just give it a little wiggle. It's probably a little bit of a clip holding it in at the front, but just play with it a little bit and eventually it'll just come out. Get it to force it. So now the PCB is detached. So what it looks like. Nothing too fancy here from Razer. It's nice to see they've chopped out some of the PCB to save weight. It's a nice little touch. And they're using a standard encoder on this one. Unlike the wired Viper, which uses like a square one with a few JTS2 connection cables. It's got quite a high scroll wheel switch, which we'll measure in a bit, which is unusual. Nothing really special here with the scroll wheel. We'll give it a quick measure in a sec. you can see the size here of the rubber for the scroll wheel, between an O and a Q. It's around a P ring size if you're looking to swap out for like a silicon wedding ring. Optomechanical switches are attached by little clips at the bottom that are hooked into the PCB. They're not soldered, which is good to see. Really like this design. Be nice to see these going forward. These are definitely hot swappable. We just need Razer and some of the manufacturers to adopt this and start selling them independently so we can pick our own switches. This would make changing them a lot easier than soldering them. If you're wondering whether the switches are interchangeable between Razers, they are. So if you've got a Viper Mini or a Razer Viper, you can use these switches, or Death Adder. You can change them around if you want, but you have to find a donor mouse, which is a little bit expensive, but it is possible. This looks to be using a Khalif 11.G. I'm not sure what the G stands for, but we're going to measure the encoder in a second. It looks like it's a Khalif 11. So the encoder is an 11mm encoder. The scroll wheel switch is a 9.6mm scroll switch. That's what the base looks like. There's a magnet, and then you've got the USB charging port at the front. That's held in by 2 screws. Not as complicated as expected to be, this Viper Ultimate. It's good to see. Should be easy to repair if you've got any problems. Should be definitely easy to mod when we get around to that this week when I stream it. Here's what the USB port looks like. Don't lose this. This is totally custom to the Viper Ultimate. If you lose this, you're in trouble. You won't be able to charge it, apart from unless using the docking station, obviously. And there's a magnet in the bottom here of the base that I can't get out without damaging it. Now we will take it out in the weight reduction, but for this we don't want to damage it. It's only what you can take out of it as part of the teardown. And this one's glued in, so it's staying here. Definitely some weight to take out this base, 13 grams. So there's 4 screws holding the top switches together. These are standard across the Viper range that I've seen. These are slightly longer. Once all 4 screws are out, we can just pull out the top part. There's nothing else holding it in. Now we can see the battery and the switches. Standard mechanical switches on the top here, although slightly curved leg, got an L-shaped leg on them, so if you want to change those out, you'd have to find the L-shaped leg version. The foam here is also attached to the battery, which we're going to pierce. This is the only bit we're going to break, just so we can get the foam off and weigh it. Won't do any harm to it. I'm going to use my little splunger here to prise the battery away from the PCB. You'll see here on the battery there's no markings, which is unusual. Normally they have to put the specifications on the battery, and this one doesn't have it. Unless it's under this gold wrap, which we'll take off as part of the deconstruction of the weight reduction. I'll have a look there. But at the moment it's not easy to tell. Certainly heavy at 8 grams. Let me know in the comments if you know what this battery spec is. Here's the measurements of the battery in case you ever need to change it. This is what the top PCB now looks like without the battery. There's one JST connection again for the switches here as well. This leaves us with the shell. We've got the diffuser, and then we've got the left and right main buttons. Like the other Viper wired, there's 2 screws holding in the left and right button. I'm expecting also a spring at the top, which is exactly the same configuration. Before we find that out, we'll take the rear plating off. I'm going to use my splunger here again just to apply a little bit of pressure to the rear plate. It makes it easier just to ping off when the clips are on. Stops you destroying your own fingers. Camera's out of focus again. Gently peel this off. It's like any other rear plate on the Vipers. Or even on Logitech. Logitech tends to screw theirs down. Razer use clips. Then we've got the diffuser. Now, I thought originally we could take these out, but I should have known that from the original wide Viper you can't. There's plastic rivets holding this in. Part of the weight reduction we will ping this out, but for this we're just going to leave it in. So So then we've got the side switches. These are exactly the same configuration as the wired Viper. They use like a little hinge system. So you have to ping off one of the legs and then it'll ping out. All four of these use the same method. They're just slightly different shaped for left and right. There's also an overlap in the middle. So you have to make sure when you put it back together that one is at the back, otherwise you can't put it together. Once they're out, we've got left and right main buttons on this to take off now. As we said, we need to remove the spring which is on the top hinge. Be careful of this because they ping out and you'll never find a replacement. Now people do take these out to stop some of the mushy feeling. It's one of the common mods, but if you want to keep them, be careful. Also don't bend them up too high that you snap them. You won't be able to get any replacements for these. I will be putting some spare parts on my website very soon. Got quite a few now. I'm starting to sell them off if people need some. Spring number 1's out, number 2's the same. Once the springs are out, then I just apply some pressure in the middle of the button from the underneath and it will push off. It's the easiest way to get them off. And that's it. There's the main shell. Still got the rubber on it because obviously you can't take that out without damaging it. This is what the main shell looks like. Razer have took quite a lot of weight out of it here. You can see that already by how they've drilled pretty much all of it. But again, it's still pretty heavy at 19 grams. And that's it. That's the Razer Viper Ultimate torn down. Hope you've liked this. Don't forget to check out the weight reduction and my other videos. I've done a lot more. I've done a nice 49 gram cheaper wireless Superlight if you're interested in that, as well as some other mice, and I'll be doing some more Razer ones very soon as well. So I'll catch you soon. See you later. Bye bye.